The wind howled across the dusty plains of Wyoming as Mei Lin clutched her worn shawl tighter around her shoulders. She had been on American soil for nearly a year, yet every day still felt like a battle against loneliness. Once she'd been a daughter of a silk merchant in Guangzhou, her hands soft and her laughter light. Now she worked scrubbing floors in a tavern that reeked of whiskey and men's regrets. That night, as the tavern filled with rowdy cowhands, a group of them began whispering and laughing at her behind their mugs. "Ain't nobody marrying a Chinese girl here," one said, spitting into the sawdust floor. "They ain't proper women, they don't belong." The words cut deep, sharper than the winter wind outside. May kept her head down. She'd heard it before, yet something inside her snapped that night. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the ache of being unseen. She stood tall, trembling but defiant, and said softly, "Maybe no one marries me, sir, but I can birth babies. I can build a home. I can love." The room fell silent for a heartbeat, then laughter erupted, harsh, mocking, cruel. "Go on back to China, little bird," the bartender sneered, but one man didn't laugh. At the back of the room sat a tall, broad-shouldered rancher, his Stetson shadowing eyes as gray as storm clouds. His name was Samuel Hayes, a man who'd buried a wife 5 winters ago and had vowed never to love again. He watched the young woman standing proud despite her shaking hands. Something about her courage struck a forgotten chord in him. When the laughter died down, Samuel rose, dropped a few coins on the bar, and walked toward her. "Miss," he said in a voice deep and steady, "you said you can birth babies. You said you can love. Then maybe it's time someone gives you a chance to prove it." The room went quiet again. All eyes turned to the rancher. May blinked in disbelief. You don't mean—" "I mean I need someone who ain't afraid of hard work." Samuel replied, "Someone with heart. My ranch has been too quiet for too long. You want a home. I've got one that needs a woman's touch." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some mocked, some stared, but Samuel didn't care. He offered her his hand right there in that smoky tavern. After a long pause, May placed her trembling hand in his. That night he took her away in his wagon, under the moonlight that painted the prairie silver. The ranch was quiet, tucked between the rolling hills and a river that shimmered like glass. Samuel showed her the house, a sturdy cabin with a creaking porch and the faint smell of pine. "It's not much," he said, "but it's honest." For the first few weeks, May worked from sunrise to sunset, cleaning, cooking, tending to chickens, and mending old curtains. Samuel watched her silently, noticing the care she poured into everything she touched. She sang softly while working, her voice like a fragile bird fluttering through the rooms, yet not always peaceful. When Samuel brought her to town to buy supplies, the townsfolk whispered behind their hands. "That rancher's lost his mind," someone muttered, "tackin' in a Chinese girl like that." May felt their stares burn into her back, but Samuel only said, "Let him talk." Folks always talk when they don't understand. One evening, as the sun set and painted the plains gold, May found Samuel sitting on the porch, staring at the horizon. "You don't regret bringing me here?" she asked quietly. Samuel shook his head. "No, ma'am. My wife used to say home ain't walls or land. It's where someone waits for you. Been a long time since anyone waited for me." Tears welled in May's eyes. "I'll wait," she whispered. As spring bloomed, life on the ranch changed. May planted flowers along the fence, filled the home with warmth, and even taught Samuel how to make rice porridge. He, in turn, taught her to ride a horse and rope cattle. The ranch began to thrive again, animals healthy, fields green, laughter echoing once more. But peace never lasts long on the frontier. One afternoon, while May was tending the garden, a group of 3 men rode up, drunk, loud, and mean. She recognized them from the tavern, the same ones who'd laughed that night. "Well, looky here," one sneered. "The Chinawoman thinks she's a rancher's wife now." Before May could answer, Samuel stepped out with his rifle resting in his arms. "You got business here?" he asked, his voice cold. The men smirked. Just paying respects to your bride. Words spreading fast, Sam. Folks don't take kindly to your kind of charity. Samuel's jaw tightened. You're trespassing. Leave. One of the men spat near May's feet. She don't belong here, Hayes. Samuel's rifle cocked. Neither do you. The standoff lasted a tense moment before the men backed down, muttering as they rode off. May stood frozen, heart pounding. Samuel turned to her, his expression softening. You all right? She nodded, trembling. Why do they hate me so much? 'Cause they fear what they don't understand, he said, taking her hands. But you let me worry about them. You just keep being you. Months passed, and the bond between them grew into something neither expected. Samuel found himself smiling again, laughing even, and May began to feel like she finally belonged. One night, as rain poured outside, Samuel lit a lantern and turned to her by the fire. You ever think about having that family you talked about? He asked softly. May looked down shyly. I dream about it, but I thought. He reached over and lifted her chin. You said you can birth babies, May. Maybe it's time we make that dream real. Her breath caught. You mean? I mean marry me, properly this time. For a moment, she could only stare at him. Then tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. Yes, Samuel, I'll be your wife. The wedding was simple. Just them, a preacher, and the open sky. The townsfolk didn't come, but the ranch hands did, smiling as Samuel placed a ring on her finger. From that day, May Lynn Hayes became the heart of the ranch. When her first child was born, a baby boy with her dark hair and Samuel's gray eyes, the same townsfolk who had mocked her came bringing gifts. One even whispered, didn't think she'd last, but maybe she's tougher than we gave her credit for. Samuel smiled proudly. She's tougher than any man I know. Years later, when people spoke of the Hayes Ranch, they didn't just talk about the land or the cattle. They spoke of the Chinese woman who turned a lonely man's house into a home, and of the love that defied every cruel word ever spoken against her. Because in a land where she was told she didn't belong, May Lynn proved that love needs no permission. And Samuel's reply that night in the tavern would be remembered forever. Then I'll marry the only woman brave enough to say she can build a life